Welcome to BrandBusters with your hosts, James Schwinn and Sean Lee. Together, we bust open the latest in CPG, retail media, and life, or whatever the we want. And for today's episode, we got something special cooked up for ya. Extra spicy. Take it away, Sean.
All right, episode 9. Here we are. We're back at it. Coming out to you every 2 weeks on BrandBusters. So tune in and log in. Favorite us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We love to spend the time with you and talk about all things e-commerce and what's hot in the news. So today we're going to talk about Uber Eats launching a TikTok style short form video. Then we'll move into TikTok actually potentially being banned in the US. And then Amazon's blowout advertising quarter in Q1, driven primarily by new TV commercials that they've launched in Amazon Prime Video. So, James, I thought it was really interesting that Uber Eats is getting in on the short form kind of video content or kind of vertical video content like TikTok. It seems like they're launching short form video to help boost discovery of local restaurants and showcase their dishes. You think this is a good move or bad move?
Great move. Amazing move. And only a matter of time before this was going to happen. I think you see others follow suit, looking at you, Instacart and other shoppable retailer apps. So big dining out guy, big open table guy. And with the recent surge in travel and work, I can tell you one of the things I always look for first is outside of getting whatever business meetings or what needs set up done is what are the restaurants in that area that are unique. So I'll go down the Google rabbit hole, open table rabbit hole. And while I'll scour the menus, I am actually looking for, okay, what's the environment like? What is the vibe like? To understand if I'm hosting someone, does that seem like the right setting?
The vibe is key. The
vibe is very key. So, if they've got the best chicken tendies, then I want to know who's got the best chicken tendies, or, is this more of a nice outing or not? So I think this is a good move. I think it'll drive some more engagement there. And I think this is maybe a play to actually go beyond, because when I think of Uber Eats, I think more like fast food, maybe lower AOV or check order. I think you might see a shift upstream to maybe nicer restaurants that have maybe an elevated menu offering and experience for guests. So this will be a fun one to monitor.
Yeah, I think it's smart move, because I do that all the time too. How I even do it like with restaurants around my neighborhood. Like when I just get bored and run out of options, it's like you see the restaurant, you see their like stock photo, and then you see like the picture of their dishes, and you're like, is this going to be any good? But if they could create some really good video content or a little behind the scenes or talk about like why their favorite dishes are special, I think that would really hook me in and entice me to buy something. What I fear is going to happen is it's just going to be dominated by like Five Guys and Chick-fil-A and everyone else, and you're just going to get a lot of bad corporate ads on these things that are very stock and don't really add any value to tell you what's on the menu. But if local restaurants adopt it, I think huge for discovery, because think about how many like hole in the wall, like, Mediterranean or, local Chinese restaurants that don't have a lot of advertising. Like think about what they could do if they actually had really good video content that would make me want to go there and try the food versus seeing like the stock picture that was taken on the camera 10 years ago.
Yeah. In Cincinnati, where Sean and I both reside, I think has some, there's a great dining scene here, and there's a lot of places with unique character. I think like Arnold's downtown. I think Arthur's in Hyde Park with that like kind of amazing courtyard in the back. So I think
even just video of the vibe, like the inside would be cool.
Yeah. And, I didn't think about this until we started talking about it, Sean, but the thing about like retail readiness, right? When you talk about Amazon a lot, I don't know, I couldn't tell you what my exact checklist or check down list of when I'm like vetting restaurants, but I do look for who's populating in top of search. I'm looking at what's the volume of reviews. I'm looking at like, what is the price point? I'm looking at the menu, and does it look at like, it's funny whether I'm shopping on a retailer site or vetting restaurants, there's a lot of parallels actually. So I think, again, this is maybe a good opportunity for your regional or local restaurant options to maybe step up their game and kind of drive more customer traffic versus, like you said, just the incumbents, taking over and this, being. I think if that's the case, this will be a complete bust. If you see the local and regional players step up and kind of lean into this, and I think it'll be a really interesting opportunity.
Yeah, how many like high school kids that work at restaurants at these local restaurants are going to become content creators now because they're going to be like, let's make some great videos. Hopefully, there's some hilarious ones too.
Oh, yeah.
But speaking of that, I mean, I think short form vertical video is all the rage. Obviously, with TikTok and Instagram Reels being probably the most popular form of content right now. News coming out of the U.S. is that the U.S. Congress it passed a bill banning TikTok if its parent company, ByteDance, doesn't divest within 1 year, and President Biden signed that bill into law. I thought this would be interesting to share with our listeners a quote from Marco Rubio, who's a senator from Florida. He said, "For years, we've allowed the Chinese Communist Party to control one of the most popular apps in America, and that was dangerously short-sighted. A new law is going to require its Chinese owner to sell the app, and that is good news for America." I think having spent time in China when I worked at Procter & Gamble, it's fascinating how they let no Western apps there. Like you can't log on to Google, you can't log on to Facebook. I mean, I guess you can if you have a VPN, but all of it's shut down because they don't want any data going out of the country on their citizens. So it was probably only a matter of time until the US and other Western countries started retaliating and kind of that of not letting our data go over to China. But I think the real issue here is probably not only just over the data, but in kind of surveillance between governments, but I think it's also over control. If you look at what was going on with the Twitter files before Elon Musk bought it, like all the socials seem to have kind of a revolving door with government agencies to make sure the narrative and things that are getting pushed is kind of kosher and approved. Obviously, with TikTok, you can't do that, right? And then you have a foreign government that may want to push whatever narrative they want in the algorithm. So it was only a matter of time until the U.S. started cracking down on that, because if you can't control the biggest form of media and probably one of the most popular, especially among Gen Z, you lose the narrative, and once you lose the narrative, like you can't control anything else. So I just thought it was super interesting. I don't know what your take is on it, James, and do you think it'll actually happen?
I think that this has been in the works for, it feels like a couple of years now, right? This is not new. This
has been talking about it for a while.
This has been a slow burn. And it's interesting to me that this is really catching steam in an election year. With maybe one potentially polarizing individual at the helm of that. But I think,
but it was both, right? Because when this first came up, Trump was in office, and then they kept talking about it when Biden was in office. So it seems like a bipartisan thing that everybody wants to ban it.
No, I think I think what I really want to monitor is if this sale does go through, like who's that going to? I think Amazon would be very interesting. I think they lack the, they tried Amazon Live and their kind of test at that. And I think TikTok Shop you're seeing some experimentation there. And with everything Prime is doing, which we're going to be talking about very shortly, as they released their Q1 earnings and they had some pretty impressive ad revenue figures, I think that would be a baller play if Amazon would somehow be able to get TikTok under their wing. But,
who can buy it? I think the only two people are Amazon and Microsoft or Apple. They're probably the only three that would have enough cash to actually try pull something off like this.
Exactly. And it's interesting because at that point, especially if it's an Apple play, then I think Scott Galloway always talks about like owning like the railroad or actually like the hardware and the software component. So this will be, I think it's you and I don't have crystal balls here, and this one will be tough to monitor. I guess I'm unbiased. I guess I hope it goes through, but for the sake of, I'd love to see it go to get in the hands of an Amazon or a Microsoft or an Apple and see what they can really do with it. And also, just from being in e-commerce, I think it'd be a fascinating thing to monitor.
Yeah. I mean, the wild card is TikTok is clearly going to sue, and that will probably delay this year deadline as it goes through the courts, probably all the way up to the Supreme Court. And then, interestingly enough, I saw an interview with the TikTok CEO where he said they'd rather just shut it down or sell everything except the algorithm, which I thought was interesting. Like, who's going to buy it if you don't have the algorithm powering it? So, it could be a case that they just refuse to play ball and just decide to shut it down and take the L, because, when you're backed generally by a government, you can do that and absorb any losses. But if it does get shut down, I think we'll see a lot of Gen Z tears being shed.
Yeah.
what else are they going to do and where will they spend their time? Big winner is probably Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk as they continue to build out their solutions.
Yeah. These guys.
All right. Well, moving on from TikTok and banning TikTok, which is kind of depressing. Let's talk about another company that had a blowout ad revenue quarter. You want to talk about Amazon's best quarter ever in ad revenue?
Yeah. So Amazon just released their Q1 figures, and ad revenue was 11.8 billion, which is up 24% year over year. I think we talked about this crystal ball here. I don't think this trend is going to go away anytime soon. You talk about the commercial success of original content such as Fallout. They're penetrating all the major sports networks and doing more with the NFL, Diamond Sports for baseball, NASCAR, NBA. They're trying to sink their teeth into everything to lure more consumers over to the Prime Video platform. But even more impressively, the ad inventory is actually evolving as well. I have a Fire Stick. I watch Prime Video. That's kind of my hub for all the other streaming apps. And, I'm guilty. Like, I've opted not just to save a few bucks a month, but I'm opting into the ad support platforms because I want to know what our brand's doing. And I think the ads are actually getting better. They're more engaging. You can pick your path. There's more real time, urgency around limited time deal or being able to do CTAs that you can activate right then and there. And I think you're going to see more. Every report the rest of the year, and probably for the next 2 to 3 years, is going to be up and to the right with their ad revenue, because you're going to see more brands take this full funnel approach to their media strategy, shifting over from search and PPC to becoming more evolved and leveraging DSP, connected TV to kind of get in on this, especially as the inventory is becoming better. They'll get more attribution type data and understanding that path to purchase for the customer base.
And they just have the best data, right? Because you can say, I want to target people on Prime Video who have bought XYZ product, or who I know are like a dog owner or a cat owner, and you can hit them with a dog food ad, right? In a way that you just can't do with traditional, or haven't been able to do with traditional TV, because Amazon knows what you're watching on Prime and they know what you're buying on Prime, so they can serve you up probably the best ads, like better than what Netflix could do and better than what some of these other platforms could do. I just think it's funny that what's old is new again. So revenue growth was driven by commercials. This quarter with their Prime streaming service, people originally went to the Prime streaming service and Netflix and everything else to get away from commercials. It was the anti-cable, and that was what was cool. Was I pay for streaming and I don't have to watch commercials. Now all the streaming agencies realize they can make a ton of money by selling commercials. So we're kind of back full circle to where we were 10 years ago when everybody was cutting the cord, and now we just have a more disparate thing that you have to pay for piecemeal, and you still get ads served to you. So it's just kind of funny that the consumer thought they were getting away from advertisements, but I think the enticement for these companies is just too large for the amount of money you can make selling targeted ads to streamers.
Yeah. Again, I think for customers, while it's absolutely attacking our need for consumerism and to make purchases impulsively, I do think it is elevating. I like to see this disparate media mix, because I think it's forcing brands and advertisers to kind of step up their game a bit and evolve versus just rely on a static strategy. You're seeing different lengths, different approaches here, edutainment. So again, I think in some ways, while the consumer might lose in the sense that they are spending more impulsively from an entertainment value, I think we win and can kind of choose that experience and path better.
Yeah, but this is the win for Amazon overall. They make money in ad revenue, and then if you don't want ads, they charge you $3 a month. So, it's a win-win. They make revenue regardless of what the consumer does. Cool. I think the other thing that I thought was interesting is that Amazon says it has 114 million households with Prime Video streaming, which I guess doesn't surprise me, but that's a lot of households.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's got to be close to 1 out of 3 households.
Yeah, probably.
I don't know what that exact ratio is, but that's pretty good saturation of the U.S. If you have that type of coverage. So, and that will probably continue to increase as well.
Agree. Well, I think that probably does it for today's episode. That was a pretty quick one today, so hopefully everybody was sticking with us. Unless James, you have anything else you want to add?
No. This was a lightning round, a few quick hits over the last couple of weeks. So a lot of fun stuff to monitor, and ready to be back at it in 2 weeks.
yeah, and then we're trying to cook up for the summer some episodes with some interviews with some interesting founders and marketers. So stay tuned, and we'll try to bring some great conversations to the pod. All right, thanks everybody. Until next time.